and welcome to Movies, Films, and Flicks. I am Mark Hoffmeyer, and joining me is a man whose phone number starts with 555. It's Niall Moore.
Hey, Mark, how you doing?
Good. You know, I tried calling you with the 555 number, but I keep getting different people.
Yeah, well, yeah, it must have been like the one of the 10,000 people who have that number. Yeah.
Area code.
You just have to keep trying and keep trying until you hit me.
I had to do like 483 area codes to finally get in touch with you on that. It took me a long time. You've joined me before on Back to the Future. Then we did the About Time episode. Now we're on Last Action Hero. And so we've dealt with time travel. Now we're dealing with interdimensional travel?
I guess you could say that. I more kind of suggested this movie because I really enjoy it. I think it's just a hilarious take on, what were the movies that I loved back when I was, 8 or 9 years old. Like, I was a huge Arnold Schwarzenegger fan. And I guess I was mature enough to realize that this was poking fun at the genre rather than meant to be taken seriously. And I've always loved it. It's like one of my kind of guilty pleasure movies that I go back and rewatch every couple of years. Like if I'm hungover or something, or I just want to put something on the background, I'm just like, oh, stick on Last Action Hero.
I mean, it's such a breezy film. And I look back to 93 when I watched it, I was 11. And I think the major issue for me was I was watching all these movies at the time. Like I had already watched Reservoir Dogs, Die Hard, all that kind of stuff. But when they were poking holes at the kind of weird partnerships of cops, the angry chief, the I can't get shot, the very explosions, this hurts. I laughed at the things I should have laughed at, like, the farts and the cat cop and stuff. But I think some of the really meta things went over my head when I was 11. But then I got older and I watched it and I just thought, this is really, because I remember Shane Black started popping up again with Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. And so I thought maybe I should go back and watch some of his old movies. And I watched this again and I just really dug it. I like Charles Dance, the villain. I like Benedict.
He's awesome.
Yeah, he's so good. But it's kind of an interesting movie in 93, right? Because this is the age of the burly action hero. This is kind of, you had the A-listers at the time and they were just blowing stuff up. And so you have this PG-13 kid-friendly movie with also a lot of action. So I think adults go to it and they're like, why is this kid in this movie? And then kids watch it and they're like, I don't understand this. But I think I like it. I don't know. There's oral histories written about how this movie failed. And I mean, they went bombastic on the marketing, but I dig it. I think it's fun.
Yeah, it's got like, it's not going to win any awards. It's not that kind of movie. Mm-mm. But what it does do so well is, as you said, is take down the tropes of the movies that had come before it. The ridiculous sequence of things where you got like, oh, I'm going to team you up with the most unlikely partner we can find. It's like, okay, you get teamed up with the animated cat. And it's like, oh, here's the like Aryan looking dude who gets teamed up with the rabbi. And it's just like, that would have gone completely over my head, I think, when I watched it. But I was watching it back the other day. I was like, oh, okay, that is actually very clever.
And I love that there's a valet to the police station. And there's a black and white Bogart that you can be...
And the ridiculous, like, costumes on the, like, female cops. They're all, like, something out of, like, some online MMORPG kind of game with as scantily clad and, plastic as possible.
Yeah, Gloria Gresham, the costume designer, she had her work cut out for her because...
Yeah.
I mean... Yeah, basically women in this movie. There's an entire scene where they bust into the studio set where they're just showing women dressed up and then showing butt shots, for lack of a better word. I mean, that's probably what they were thinking.
Yeah, they just smashed through a wall and then there's just this like big room with just, scantily clad women everywhere.
And I know it's the 90s, but what was the casting call for this? Like, you're not going to get your face shown. You're just going to be a scantily clad running away from the camera. Like, that's essentially the thing. And I know that's a trope, but then this movie also played in a trope. Does that make sense? Or was that...
Well, I guess at that point we were in the movie, so it was important to stick to
the tropes.
Oh. Everything that happened, within the movie verse has to be, in. Basically, at that point, we're still playing out whatever the in-movie screenwriter had said. It's like, okay, Jack Slater will have this car chase, and then they'll crash through, and there'll be this scene of titillation where we'll see all the
Yeah.
And I guess in the real Jack Slater movie, was Jack Slater PG-13, or do you think the Jack Slater movies go to R? I guess he says it was PG-13, didn't he?
Yeah, because he says you can't say these words that I'm dropping on you. And there's
I
no
wonder
blood
what was on that piece of paper.
Yeah, I love that scene too. Say it, like this kid, that's a sharp kid that got sucked into this video game movie. And I gotta say, one of my favorite lasting visuals since '93 is during the opening car chase, not the ice cream truck bit. I love that. But when they ramp up, they ramp up, they take a ramp, hit the street, and they're driving along and the car in the background ramps up and just flies in the air, then explodes. And then hits the ground. It's such a funny sight gag, and all the vehicles just explode. And later on, he shoots a cab. He's like, "The cabs are bulletproof." It's and it's also quite.
Well, that's the thing. Like, if you look at those movies, you can, if you were to, I think the cars explode easier than like soccer players fall down. Right? You just touch one, and it's just like, boom. Oh, referee, give me a yellow card, please.
They were just he drove into them and they exploded. This is a dangerous world. Now, do these cars only explode when Slater goes by them since he's the main character? I guess so.
Pretty much. I think it's plot armor, certainly. Maybe it's, maybe they're just sat there waiting to explode, just when the plot can kind of go past them. And it's like, oh, now's my time.
There's a lot going on in this world. Jeez Louise.
When you've got a sentient animated cat, who knows what's going on with the cars. The cars might actually be, from the Pixar movie Cars, and they're actually there to explode and then fulfill their purpose. You
have Sharon Stone popping up in this world. You have the T-1000 popping up, which I don't think is a T-1000, right? It's just Robert Patrick.
It's Robert Patrick in police uniform, looking T-1000-ish.
Oh, geez Louise. But yeah, I mean, this movie, I love the story about how it was created too. I mean, you had these young scriptwriters, Zach Penn and Adam Leff, writing a script about how a teenager gets sucked into a movie. Because let's face it, man. So I'm like a children of the 90s. That was just sort of free range. And I would just watch tons of movies. That's just what you did in the 90s. You just would go to a theater. You did Columbia House when you were a kid. So I kind of lived out in the country. I couldn't just go hit up the city. So any movie, any chance I had, I'd go see a double header. I would sneak into Time Cop. I would, I had on my Columbia House, my VHS tapes. I guess I did escape into movies. So, I mean, I do like the whole idea of this kid doing that. And the writers, I guess, originally had him as a teenager going into this world, then coming back and sort of accepting that, like, this dream world, he shouldn't put all his identity in that. Arnold liked it. The script got bought, but then they brought in Shane Black and David Arnott to rewrite it. And then they went into production. Then they got William Goldman, the dude who wrote Princess Bride. They gave him $1.5 million for 4 weeks of rewrites. Then they brought in Carrie Fisher. And they were rewriting it as they were shooting, and it still comes across as a fun flick. I mean, McTiernan said he said he was doing 18-hour days on this movie, and they said they wrapped.
That's crazy.
They wrapped 3 weeks before the thing was supposed to hit.
Well, weren't they doing reshoots after they had some disastrous screening or something that people didn't get it, and they reshot some more stuff?
Yeah, they didn't even have an ending. I think they didn't have the rooftop scene. And then there's going to be a scene where they brought in, like, Dracula and all these people. So he would battle movie characters from other movies when he's in the real world, Jack Slater. But for me...
that's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
See, when it comes to that, would the characters have their abilities from the movie when they transition to our world? Like...
Death did, right? Seventh Seal had it.
Death did, right?
Yeah.
So, if you bring in Dracula, is he actually a vampire, or is he just a dude with pointy teeth?
Ooh, Ivan through suck your blood.
Go visit Darth Vader. Does he go around force choking people? He would still have a lightsaber. Does a lightsaber then work?
Ooh, I would start a lawn business, because you know how fast you could chop down trees with that thing, or shave bushes. But it's but I went and I did some thinking about this. I did some Kevin Bacon-esque punch dancing in a warehouse to sort my feelings out about this film. And a lot of people were complaining that the final villain is the Ripper, played by Tom Noonan. But it makes sense, because in Jack Slater 3, his child is killed by the Ripper. So at the end, he has a chance to get revenge on the Ripper with his kind of, not son, in the original script, it'd be like the kid didn't have a dad. He lost his son, so they sort of formed like a father like son unit. But then they realized they had to go their own ways. But that makes sense. Like, I think him battling Dracula. I mean, Arnold battling Dracula would be amazing. But do you think it makes more sense to have the Ripper there, even though it's kind of a more boring ending? It's more kind of catharsis to kill the Ripper.
Well, it makes sense in terms of the actual character. Like, maybe, if it was Benedict, that's kind of, the villain you've been introduced to in the movie. But having him just battle some random movie villain from another film, it means nothing to him. It's just like, oh, okay. Oh, you're Dracula. Okay, right. I have some holy water. Here you go.
Yeah.
Just stop by the church on the way. I know how to kill you. You're like one of the most famous movie villains in the world.
Do a cross real quick, get some water, douse it with them, douse it on them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I just read those complaints about it, and it seems like, okay, the consensus about this movie,
the other
right?
Thing on that,
Go for it.
Yeah, the other thing on that is why would Dracula bother?
Yeah, exactly.
He's got no motivation to be in that building. He's been transported to a city full of people. He's going to be going, hunting or doing whatever. He's not going to be like, oh, what I really should be doing is taking this random kid and taking him to a rooftop and luring Arnold Schwarzenegger up to have a climactic battle with me for some reason.
Yeah, that's okay. This movie, though, as a whole, the consensus is negative. Would you say?
Oh yeah.
Why do you think that is? I would say,
I think mostly people didn't get it at the time. Like when it came out, it didn't play to its audience. Like its audience was the kind of guys like you and me who'd been watching like Commando, who'd been watching like Total Recall, who'd been watching Terminator, who wanted like some more just Arnold Schwarzenegger blowing stuff up and being a badass. And the problem was this movie made fun of all of those movies essentially. And it was basically just being like, okay, hey, that movie's, oh yeah, see when someone gets shot? Oh yeah, that's just a flesh wound. Yeah.
I love that at the end. He had a bullet hole in his chest, and they bring him back, and you're like, this is nothing. He's fine.
Barely a flesh wound.
I love that moment. It just cracks me up. No, you're right. It did. It was interesting for Schwarzenegger, too, because, I mean, he was that guy at the time. I know he did Twins, he had done Kindergarten Cop, but those are more straight-laced comedies. So I think this was his way of doing an action movie, so someone compared it to Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, where it's an action movie, but there's a kid sidekick.
Yeah. Which, if you look at it in, base terms, that's what it is. But that means you're missing the whole point of it, I think, if you're focusing on that.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. This is a weird one, too. Just reading everything about this and how it tanked and how they put the name on they spent, what, $1.5 million or $500,000 to put their logo on a rocket that was delayed for 6 months, then finally shot out to space. Did you hear that?
They shut down Times Square for, a week or something to do, the filming for the premiere scene.
Oh, my gosh. And they brought in every celebrity they could think of. I mean, so I guess Arnold was in sort of desperation mode with this. He called in every favor he had to make this movie.
He loved it. He said the script was one of the best he'd ever read. He absolutely loved it. It was a passion project for him.
And if you think about it, you have John McTiernan, Hunt for Red October,
who's
Die Hard.
Yeah, Die Hard.
Yeah, Predator.
Hunt for Red October. That's a cracking movie as well.
Beautiful films, great track record. Then you have Shane Black, just the hotness in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And this is before he lost some of his luster with The Last Boy Scout, then he had Long Kiss Goodnight, and I think some people kind of soured on him a little bit. So they had this movie. They had Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was still making hits. So, I mean, I guess Charles Dance probably wasn't that big of a name at the time. Some of the other actors probably weren't that big. But this...
Well, yeah, Charles Dance was the second choice behind... They wanted Alan Rickman.
Oh, imagine Alan Rickman. He never would have taken that. If McTiernan did it.
Well,